I don't know how well this video is gonna go because I'm gonna be doing free balling kind of no outline this time. I can't remember if I did that in the last video or not, but I'm gonna be talking about how a lot of times in life you just feel like you're falling behind. No, in all different kinds of stages that you go through, it just happens, that feeling of just, oh, I don't know if what I'm doing currently or the actions and steps that I'm taking is what is best for me. How does this compare with other people? It seems like they're doing the same things, but even better, faster, or maybe doing things completely different, but they're reaching their goals or looking like they're happy and fulfilled at a way faster rate than I'm currently at. And scrolling through LinkedIn recently, which is one of the most toxic social media apps in my humble opinion. It sucks looking through all your people that you knew from high school and college and just people that you grew up with being like, oh my god, you accept this role at JP Morgan, or you're at BlackRock now. Or, oh my god, I'm on Amazon doing some web services, cloud, software stuff, Microsoft, any of those FANG companies. And you just can't think but to compare yourself and being like, what have I been doing the last few days? Why the fuck is that not happening to me? And the point of it is just, it's hard not to look at somebody else's life and then look at yours on those platforms and be like, what am I doing wrong? Like, how are they able to do it? For me personally, I'm on the job hunt along with thousands and thousands of other people just looking to get themselves entered into the industry with no background and having to compete with, at least it feels, with people with senior level roles or people who have masters and PhDs for listings that seem like they should be just for the new guys. The ones that are like, hey, you got that little paper at the end. And I've been sitting on it and reflecting on it, mostly just because it's painful, not gonna lie, to have to sit with those emotions. But I was comparing it to a more cheesy analogy of a tree. Everyone starts off on the same path, the same as a tree. There's that little big stem, maybe a leaf or here or two. But it's not until the end where it starts branching out like crazy. The branches are going in all different directions as age and time go on, and it just keeps going and growing, and you're just like, wow, it's just a whole, what looks like a mess, but it's just like a beautiful collection of just different pathways of navigating. And I compare that to in life. We all start out in elementary school, middle school, high school, through education, at least traditionally through there. Or at least in other scenarios, you're around the same area with your peers when you're growing up. Obviously, this is a big generalization. There's a ton of other things that can happen. Changes in your environment, your family, parenthood, experiences, trauma. All that can fluctuate and change the color of how you started. And as you get older, as you're going through life, there's just more avenues to like take, or not take necessarily, but more to explore. And back then maybe you had very few options and that's why it looks similar, but as you're getting older, there are just a lot more different ways you can go through life. And I think it's important to understand that there is no wrong way. Like, everyone has their own way of navigating through life and going through life, and that pathway is meant for you specifically. And when you are comparing to other people, I think it's best to keep that in mind. You're going down the route that's best for you. Like, it's tailored in your situation, and nobody else has lived in the same viewpoint as you did. So it doesn't make sense to compare yourself to someone who maybe they've gone through a similar route and and their life looks completely different than yours, whether you envy it or you condone it. Like, it's something that you don't really admire or value, or you think it's the wrong pathway. It can work both ways in that regards. And on that note, because of the avenue and viewpoint you took and have on the world, you should take advice that maybe some people have given you on what you should with a little grain of salt. Just because, like I stated earlier, they haven't been in your position. Your position is unique, one of one. And I'm not saying that you should totally disregard everything. Oh, their advice sucks. like them telling you to work out and wake up at 5 in the morning is just terrible. There's some objective truth to some advice like that, but you gotta look at it through, will it work for you? Is this something for you? I think Bryce DeChambeau, it has a very interesting teaching style when it comes to giving advice and swing tips. And when someone's asking for help, he a lot of times will try something new and then ask that person, like, how did that work for you? How did that feel for you? And if it was something that many other people, it's helped them in their golfing career, but it didn't help with yours, that's okay. That just means you need something different, tailored for you. Like, it's almost like oftentimes in life and in society, at least in the US, it feels like we standardize a lot of things, basically. Anything from advice to ratings to GPA, those kinds of things. And they're still important. They still have a time, place, and purpose. But I think it's important to just keep in mind and keep aware that you gotta think about what works for you. And that's something important that can totally make those standardizations and advice and stuff sometimes just not compatible. And I think if you maintain both ideologies, like, that's where you get the good stuff. That's where you're able to succeed and really tune into life, have it tailored for you. I think that's the secret. Got this from a philosophy talk in my college back when I was still in school. He was talking about the differences between the objective, subjective, and like standardizations. Like, using the example of a recipe to cooking, you can follow a recipe exactly, cook it 15 minutes here, put this amount of ingredients, salt, vinegar, whatever, and your stuff still doesn't come out quite perfect. It's because that recipe is following something that was tailored towards its environment, its tools, the oven, that specific stove, pots, pans, whatever. And you could have a totally different setup, and that's where the beauty is in cooking. And by the way, this is coming from someone that's terrible at cooking, so maybe you can take this with a grain of salt, or just take it like I haven't done this or seen this myself. But anyways, there's an art when it comes to cooking, and you gotta use things that are observable in your circumstances. Like, oh, maybe I don't cook the burger for 8 minutes exactly. Maybe I look at some of the features, like, oh, until it's brown on the edges, and then that's when I flip it. Or just the smell, or using your senses and adapting to what you're currently feeling and observing. I can't believe I'm describing the aura of a burger right now, but I think that's like a pretty good example to use for this kind of thing. And I'll put the guy's name in the description if you're interested more in his work. I thought it was really cool. And yeah, I think it's just a beautiful way of going through things. And I've started looking through life in that lens and keeping that in mind when I come across things such as self-help advice, or like advice a friend is giving me, or the advice I'm giving to somebody. A lot of times I will say, what does it feel right to you? What do you think in your perspective is the best case of navigating through that? And I think that's like something that we're slowly realizing, but not a lot of people do yet. And that's something important to keep in mind. But yeah, if you want to take away anything from this, is just pay attention to the aura. As much as that's a meme, like, pay attention to the aura in front of you and what kind of, like, works for you with the objective things that work for most people. Take that into account and what your experience is. And if you combine the two, I think you get the best outcome. It's not fun. I will say, with what I'm going through right now, I don't have a job. I don't know what direction I want to go in life. And I don't even know if the things I'm pursuing right now in terms of field of jobs and the habits I'm doing is what I would want in the future. It's a little disheartening, a little discouraging, because I'm just thinking to myself, oh, you can put in all this time and work and then you get to it and it's something that you really don't want. But I think in that point too, it's important to also keep in mind, a lot of things to keep in mind, that you are learning something, you are evolving still. You're picking things up as you're going along, and it's not like those lessons or new perspectives or new ideas that you've accumulated go away. That's just more experience and more evidence, more points towards building who you are. And I think it's important to just remember that, recognize that, so you don't feel discouraged in this current job market or whatever challenge you're going through. That at some point you will be at a place where, wow, a couple years ago, a problem that I thought I had was actually not that big of a deal. I think literally last year my problem was just making sure I graduate on time. And before that was like, am I in the right major? Should I switch? What if I switch and I don't like it, or it doesn't get me a job, which is currently happening? But we won't let it define us. And if that was just the right decision, and in the grand scheme of things, zoomed in, they seem very scary and very real. But in the long run, in the long term, it's just another hurdle that we recognized. And sometimes you look back on and you're like, I needed that. I needed that pushback in order to put in the more effort in response to become the person who I am. And it's where I'm at. Again, I'm not happy where I am right now. I would prefer to keep my promises with my goals. For example, I wrote to myself I would make at least 20 videos this year, and that was in the beginning of January or February, before the year ended, and I think I'm at 2 so far. But I just have to keep reminding myself, it's okay, keep moving, and things will just come to you. And that might be like wishful thinking, but I think that's the mindset you need to just really hunker down and grow as a person. So yeah, but like I said, this is advice coming from a 22-year-old still trying to figure things out in life. But these were just some of my thoughts, and if you guys had any to share or any feelings about it, please let me know in the comments. Anything I got wrong, which I'm sure I did, since I've made this in such a whim. But thanks for watching, thanks for making it this far, and I'll see you guys in the next video.